if you stay humble, you can find answers wherever you go. Because at the end, you have to understand that you have to unlearn some things that you believe
Yes.
in your life. So at the end, it's just a process to unlearn what you already knew and
Yes.
understand that sometimes that can be a little bit scary to be humble to understand you don't know sometimes you don't know everything. So yeah, in the
Yeah.
end, I would say that just stay curious and understand that sometimes you have to unlearn what you believe.
Yeah, that's really good because everything is a lie once you understand Bitcoin. So you have to unlearn everything that you know. That's great.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
was
for example, I start with Bitcoin and then I get to exercise, then I get to health, then I get to
yeah.
cooking. And it's just a process to understand if your government is lying to you in one thing, why you're not lying in everything, right? It's like just
Yeah.
start to get to the point to do your own conclusions.
Yes. Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Microseed. Microseed engraves your entire Bitcoin seed phrase onto fireproof, waterproof steel, or titanium. Small enough to fit in your palm, strong enough to last a lifetime. It's durable, easy to hide, and built for secure storage.
If your seed phrase is still on paper, it's time to upgrade and take self custody to the next level. Because not your keys, not your coins. Go to microseed.io and use code LUNA, LUNA, for a discount, or check the link in the description below.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Moon with the Lunas podcast. Today's Bitcoin price is sitting around 62,500. Today, we're joined by Pamela Posada, a Salvadorian Bitcoiner, digital nomad, and a founder of Sisters of Satoshi, a community dedicated to helping bring more women into Bitcoin across Latin America. Let's go. Pamela also works behind the scenes with Bitcoin creators and media companies, helping them grow their audiences through better content strategies, titles, and thumbnails. Today, we'll talk about her Bitcoin journey and what she's witnessed firsthand in El Salvador, her work in Bitcoin media, and where she sees Bitcoin heading in the future. Pamela, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate the lovely words about me, myself. To be honest, sometimes it's really nice to hear to somebody else, right? Because if
Yeah.
you say to yourself, it's gonna look weird. But yeah, I really appreciated the invite, and it's a pleasure to meet you, both of you.
Yes,
Right.
we're so excited to have you. And it's always nice to hear from a female in the Bitcoin space
Oh,
because oftentimes we see a lot of men, working in this space. And it's nice for me who kind of joined Bitcoin later on to kind of see how women are navigating this as well. So I'm excited for this conversation and just to learn more about you. But yeah, just to go and dive in, how did you first discover Bitcoin and what kind of made it click for you?
well, the first time that I listened about Bitcoin was in 2021 when El Salvador made a legal tender. At that time, really, I didn't understand Bitcoin. I didn't get to Bitcoin. I just hear that, El Salvador is going to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. I was like, why? I mean, what? What does this mean, right? How is it going to affect me? At that time, I was working in my fiat job. I graduated as a fashion designer. So I was working in the industry for almost 5 years. And I just hear it, but it really didn't click to me. In El Salvador, we have many like opportunities or advantages in compare with other countries that, for example, Bitcoin is prohibited. Right in El Salvador, in that time, people really try to push to get to more to Salvadorans get to Bitcoin. We have our first wallet that it was Chivo wallet that was just specific for Salvadorians to use it like an ATM to withdraw money. For example, we our currency is the US dollar. So you can do the exchange, for example, let's say Bitcoin, and then you can exchange for US dollar, and then you can withdraw in the Chivo ATM. That it was all part of the government to incentivize it. And at the beginning, every Salvadorian, just for your ID, when you enter to this wallet, you're gonna receive $30 of Bitcoin.
Nice.
Well, in that time, it was a similar price like right now, like a 65K, pretty much something like that. So people are always complaining about it. Like there are a lot of was a lot of news in the media say, "Oh, Salvador adopting the worst time for Bitcoin because those $30 in Bitcoin, it was like a 25. You know, it was always volatile." So many Salvadorians, what they do, it was just withdraw that money.
Mhm.
And you have
Mhm.
to understand also Salvador is a poor country, so many people live for daily basis. It's like
Mhm.
those $5, extra $5 they didn't have, they use them for something. So at the
Yeah.
end, those many of us we didn't understand about what it was Bitcoin, and many
Right.
others, for example, because to withdraw that money, you have to first send it to somebody because it was like kind of not allowed for the app to just withdraw. If you receive it, you have to send it to somebody. That person have to withdraw it for you or send it to you
Mhm.
back. So many people get a scam. Like they say, I
Yeah.
have
Mm.
$20 in cash right now. Can you send me the Bitcoin and I'm gonna give you $20? So even if
Yeah.
it was $30 in Bitcoin. So yeah, many
Yeah.
people just send the money to somebody or just go to do a big line just to wait. The
Wow.
first week that the ATM, it was a big line, so people just withdrawing the money. So yeah, at the
Wow.
end it was like it was a really good idea, but really bad execution at the end.
Yeah.
You know, when you are included, um, in this case, citizens that never understand not only Bitcoin, we are also one of the countries with not many people have bank accounts. So yeah,
Mm.
it's just get to that point to see money as digital. It's difficult for
Yeah.
Salvadorians. Even right now, there are many Salvadorians that they only accept cash. For example, if you go a little grocery store in your village, that
Mhm.
person probably not gonna accept card. It's just gonna
Yeah.
accept cash. So yeah, it was a little bit misconception about it, what it was
Mhm.
Bitcoin. And to me in that time, as I say, I didn't even withdraw the money. I didn't even move the money. I just leave it in my wallet from the Salvadorian wallet. And
Mhm.
then a year after, I was trying to improve my English. So I decided to go to a beach, like a Bitcoin beach, to start to talk to more gringos just to improve my language. And there are many there that was Bitcoiners. How they get me orange pill is like, oh yes, this thing about Bitcoin would come for El Salvador because it's a Bitcoin legal tender. It's like, and what is Bitcoin, right? What is
Yeah.
Bitcoin so important, or what is the technology behind, right? So
Yeah.
what they really catch me about Bitcoin was this freedom technology that
Mhm.
it was give you to you the power of sovereignty and not just some financial sovereignty. That also it's just the idea to you can control your time with it,
Yes.
because right now if our money is really devaluated, it's just in time you're everything that you're trying to build is nothing. You cannot purchase the same things that you can do it like 5 years ago. The things are
Yeah.
just increasing. So to me, the idea that have a really limit amount of Bitcoin, and at the end is if we have something like infinity money, at the end,
Mhm.
yes, the people that really suffer about those consequences are us, the people
Yep.
that really live in the daily basis. So yeah, at the end, it was like just a little small thing that really catched me. And it was
Mhm.
like, I really want to get involved with this, but how? How can get Bitcoin? Because I was poor. So I was like,
Yeah.
how can, well, buy Bitcoin? So I decided to start to offer services to earn Bitcoin. So I started offering services to Bitcoiners that visit in El Salvador. Many of them, it was just content creation. I didn't have any idea about what is video editing, for example, because it was just different to my career. But I really,
Right.
really want to get more Bitcoin and get earn
So
in
cool.
Bitcoin. So
Yeah.
yeah, at the end it was like just a really interesting process because I was a newbie. I didn't have any idea what is Bitcoin, what is 21 million or volatile, all the things that you
Yeah.
hear about behind the technology is like what about what is mining, right? So at the end when I have to edit things that I didn't understand, that was my university in that regard because I have to learn as a
Yeah.
newbie, what does that mean? And then they try to make that look clear for somebody who doesn't understand Bitcoin, because that's
Yeah.
another thing about content creation. Many of the content right now, it's really focused for people that are really into Bitcoin already. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's helped me a lot to understand at the beginning for what is Bitcoin and get me to the point to start working with Bitcoiners and content creation.
Yeah, well, that's amazing, Pam. Well, I think like the fact that you were curious to like, hey, let me go to the Bitcoin beach. Hey, let me figure this out. Hey,
Yeah.
what is it going on? Especially when your country just flipped everything
Right.
upside down on
Yeah.
you, right? You're like legal tender, long lines, like everyone's like, what is this? What's going on?
Yep.
But instead of like fighting against it, like, okay, well, let me adopt it. Let me
Yeah.
figure this out. Let me see
Yeah.
what it's all about. And I think that's what's very hard for people, like that
Mhm.
change is so hard, and so
Mhm.
being able to be open-minded and curious, I think being curious is such a game changer in today's
Yeah.
life because you know, it'll open doors for you. And so I
Yes.
think that's amazing that you did that. And going to, like, learning it, right? Editing it,
Yeah.
you know, and you're like, "Whoa." You're like, "Wait, what is this?" And then you, like, go and look it up, right? And
Mhm.
so which is really cool because you're seeing it and then you're learning it, and then
Mhm.
you're, like, deep diving. And it's
Mhm.
almost like it reminds me of, like, when I read a book and I see a big word that I don't know, I'm like, let me go and, like, look it up," right? And then now
Yeah.
you know. You're like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Yeah.
So real quick, so in 2021 they did this, and now we're fast forward to 2026.
Mhm.
Are things getting more like better? Like, are people adopting it, or is it still like a resistance against this?
Well, it's have a 50-50, I would say, because, for example, it's a kind of progress in the regard that most people are now pointing El Salvador in a map. They know where is El Salvador now.
Yeah.
5, 10 years ago, nobody know where it was El Salvador, or even if they know, they only knew for something, for bad news.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
for Salvadorians, also, for example, more tourism also increase more money coming into Salvador, helps to grow more communities, helps to increase the money, right? So it helps a lot. But at the same time, the ones that are really getting advantage about, for example, Bitcoin, at the end, they're not the Salvadorians. They really not get to Salvadorians. They get more to the Bitcoiners who really
Mm.
are visiting El Salvador. That at the end they can spend Bitcoin. That's really one of the once you're left in Salvador, it's like, oh, I would like to spend Bitcoin, and it's really difficult to find a place in your city or in your country to spend Bitcoin. I was in Albania just 2 weeks ago, and it's one of the places I believe they need Bitcoin, but it's still the same idea, right? They don't understand what is Bitcoin, or yeah, at the end, it's like it's difficult to find places that you can spend Bitcoin. So
Mm.
I will say it's a 50-50. There are some Salvadorians because I have a few Salvadorians that are my friends that right now they're my friends. They also get to Bitcoin for similar times than me, like 3 years ago. And also, for example, my family is fully orange pill. Maybe they're not like fully Bitcoiners like me that are really into this, but they are at least they're trying to save in Bitcoin because they see what is means about the money supply. They understand what is the problem with money, and some Salvadorans don't understand the problem. Well,
Mhm.
many of us we don't understand what is the problem around. But yes, Bitcoin at the end is just get to the person in the way that can understand, and that's I would say it's like a 50-50 about it.
Yeah. I think it's awesome though, because you forget about the people who are just learning, right? Who are just trying to understand it. And when you're in a I guess a survival state of mind, it's hard to learn something new. We've always
Yes.
talked about this because we're trying to earn money, we're trying to go, 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 go. And
Hmm.
when you just are so tired, you can't learn something new, right? And you know, you can, but it's often challenging. And
Yes.
so it took someone like you to kind of show like, "Hey, I had to learn this. I had to, you know, put myself out there. I had to go and become in like immerse myself so that I could understand it better."
Yeah.
I think that's really eye-opening, especially for other Salvadorians who are watching you, you know, and going, "Oh, if she could do it, maybe I can do it too."
Mhm.
And I think that's really helpful to see in your space as well.
Yeah, well, people are like, "I gotta eat." And then
Yeah.
you're talking about like, "No, you gotta like saving this new money."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" Like,
Yeah.
"No, I gotta
Yeah.
eat." And
Yeah, they're
it's
prioritized.
yeah.
Yeah.
And even with like even in America, like if
That
we even
happens
go
here.
by America, like everybody is like you talk about Bitcoin and they're like look at you like you're speaking Chinese or
Yeah.
like you're in a pyramid scheme or it's a scam. I would probably even say but El Salvador, they're 50-50. We're
Yeah.
like 10-90. Like no one knows
It
what's
feels like it, yeah.
yeah, like
Well, the
people talk
adoption of
about it.
Salvador is still very low. It's the adoption in percent of the population is like 10%. So it's also
Yeah.
very low in compared with
Yeah.
other countries. We still, it's possible to have a Bitcoin standard living in El Salvador. But yeah, for
Mm,
example, in San Salvador, maybe it's more easier to some Salvadorans understand this bubble because they have, for example, access to bank accounts. They understand what is internet. They have laptops. They learn. I mean, there are just a different. We have in El Salvador different others gaps in technology. For
yes.
some people, they don't even have access to a phone, for example, or even if they have access to the phone, they really don't know how to use it. They're just
Wow.
watching social media. So it's like at the end, I
Mhm.
also believe it's about you create your own opportunities. Because at the
Yes.
end, as you say, it's open. It's also about the open mind of to learn something, even if you don't have the time, even if you're
Yep.
gonna sacrifice maybe hours of sleep just to go to a point that you feel like no return.
Mhm.
Oh
For
yeah.
sure, for sure. I think that's super, just helpful for people to hear
Yeah.
because yeah, we can talk ourselves into something and we could talk ourselves out of something really fast. I've noticed that too. But yeah, I'm curious too. What's something you've personally witnessed that most people, maybe outside of El Salvador, would never see, like on the headlines in El Salvador?
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm. Well, for example, one thing that every people that when I'm outside of El Salvador, they always say, "Oh yeah, you can do a living with Bitcoin." It's like yes and no, because there are some restrictions. Because at the end, right now, Bitcoin is not anymore like legal tender. It's mean that
Mm,
it's not prohibited, but of course, it's like a few places are places that you can spend Bitcoin. Maybe, for example, Starbucks, yes, you can go to Starbucks and pay with Bitcoin, but maybe if you want to go to a different coffee shop, it's probably yes or probably no. At the end, it's like people really believe that every store that you see in El Salvador is possible to spend Bitcoin. That's pretty much not true. And the end
uh-huh.
is a few spots. We have a lot of Bitcoin communities around El Salvador. But yes, even in El Sonte, there are some stores that really don't accept Bitcoin or they really don't accept a card. So yes, at the end, it's like you can check the maps because at the end it's a Bitcoin map to say the merchants that accept Bitcoin. But yeah, it's not like completely true that you're gonna do a life with Bitcoin and everyone accept Bitcoin because that's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good because I get the perception living out in US, like, oh, El Salvador, Bitcoin country,
Yeah.
they're like really adopting. It's, like you said, now we're going into year 5, right? And
Yeah.
so you get this perception where like,
Everyone
everyone's
accepts
using
it. Yeah.
Bitcoin and there's a Bitcoin beach and
Mhm.
like their president's pro Bitcoin. So you do get this like misconception, it sounds like,
Yeah.
because you're boots on the ground. So I'm so glad I get to hear from you who
Yeah.
like is in the streets right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I really appreciate this feedback because it's really interesting. A lot of people got that perspective of, hey, El Salvador is like Bitcoin country, like, and we all need to kind of like go over there. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I
Yeah.
like that you shared that with us. And so, really quick, what inspired you creating Sisters of Satoshi? Please break this down for us.
Okay, that's a funny story because I was not looking for a community. So I get back last year in November. Like we have in November in El Salvador, pretty much like conference time before the conference, and there we have many Bitcoin meetups in El Salvador.
Oh, nice.
So that's one of the things that maybe you can also experience, meet another people that are really in your same interest set. So I went to a Bitcoin meetup and I was just me and other two women in
Okay.
all the Bitcoin meetup. I was like, oh, we start talking to each other, and I was like, oh yeah, we should catch up, do some things together. Because one it was a German woman, another one was another Salvadorian that now is one of my friends, and the other was me. It was like, oh yeah, we should do something together, like you
Yeah.
like a friends, right? Because yeah, they're it's like same interest. Maybe we can get to like a woman, we can get catching up to each other very well. So we start to we did a group chat in WhatsApp to catch up the three of us because it's like just separate chats is just too difficult. So we did a group chat together. And then we start to go to different other meetups. And it was like, oh, yeah, you're going to come to this meetup. You're going to go to this meetup. We should do something outside of next week. And then we start to meet another women, female Bitcoiners that they're also like kind of lonely. So we decide, well, we can do something together as a women, right? So they start to increase the the group in our group chat, and then we saw that it was a really interesting opportunity to get to more Salvadorians
Mm,
because as I say, it's like even if there are a few Salvadorians into Bitcoin, it's less female Salvadorians. So I was like, of course, it's just a time to help them to understand, and at the end, it's like it's better if you are another local to meet, to try to connect with this person because as for example, if you live in the U.S., I never live in the U.S. So I don't know how to connect for with another American, but I know really how to connect with Salvadorians, Latin America, because at the end it's like we have some similarities.
yes.
And that's how we start with Sister of Satoshi. We try to get to more Salvadorians into Bitcoin and also help to the international community that go to El Salvador to help to inspire them. Because as you say, it's like it's very important get to another women perspective because at the
Yeah.
end it's like the role models. For example, a man, if I asked it to somebody, what is your role model, he's gonna mention another man, and it's
Yeah.
just normal for them. It's no,
Yeah.
it's really weird that somebody gonna mention a woman. So it's the same
Yeah.
for women. They really need to get to another example. There can be another woman to understand. So that's how we get to Sister of Satoshi to help the international community to join to the Salvadorian community. It's a really good time to just connect, to understand perspectives, to learn from each other, and that's how we get to Sister of Satoshi. And then we decide to create content in Spanish to get to
Love it.
more Salvadorians because
Yes.
sometimes when we start to do the meetups, it was a problem that, oh, women in Bitcoin. It's like, but what does it mean, women in Bitcoin? It's
Yeah.
I've never been in Bitcoin. What are gonna see? They're gonna try to sell me something. So for Salvadorians, it
Right.
can be some it's scary to say
Yeah.
women in Bitcoin if they don't understand Bitcoin. So we
Hmm.
start to create content, educational content about Bitcoin, really focus in Spanish speaking and
Mm,
Spanish content to help them to understand not just Bitcoin. It's about finances. It's about money. It's about what we think is about savings, things that will really get to the point, and then they can discover Bitcoin. How
right.
Bitcoin can be an answer to these problems. So that's how we start to get more women, not only in El Salvador but also in Latin America. At the end, is a gap that we can cover because yes, exists right now exists a lot of Spanish content as the same English content, but
Yes.
Yeah.
sometimes too technical. And for a
Yes.
woman who, for example, technology is not our best friend. Not many women like technology, and then we have to talk about money. So there are
Yeah.
two things that most
Yep.
some women really don't like. So it's
Yes.
just a process to get to more women.
Yeah,
So good.
that's really good, Pam, because those are two big hurdles, right? Internet and money. Like already people don't even talk about money, whatever place you're at in the world. Like it's a very sensitive
Mhm.
topic, right?
Taboo.
Yeah.
Yeah, taboo. Yeah, and but it's something that we want to normalize to people. Like you have to talk about money. Like that's the layer that's broken, and why we're all where we're at, and we're all in this little wheel. And
Oh.
I just want to backpedal real quick and unpack some stuff that you shared. So that's cool. So you went to this Bitcoin meeting, this Bitcoin meetup, and then there was two other girls. Like, so when you went to this, how many people total like were there? I know because you said there was two girls. So how many people total were at this meetup?
For example, when it's a small meetup, it's around like 20 people. So
Oh wow,
when
Wow.
that's pretty big.
we, yes, it's pretty big. And sometimes when we have more other events, they can be 100 Bitcoiners. There are some
Wow.
Wow.
times that we have really big meetups with more than 100 person. And then we have
Wow.
conference that really, it's a really big community in El Salvador about Bitcoiner. And I only experienced that also in Paraguay, which also surprised me. Outside of El Salvador, Paraguay, they really have a really big Bitcoin community there that is just Bitcoin only. It's one of the
Okay.
Wow.
places you really not, you're not gonna care about somebody with crypto or some
Yeah.
other shitcoin around. But yes, it's, and that time we went to a meetup that was 20 people, One of
Mhm.
them it was my brother because, as I said, my brother and my family is all fully orange pill, and my little brother, it's fully Bitcoiner as me. So we always want to meetups together. So yeah,
Nice.
I met the two women in that time, and right now we have in the group chat we have around 20. Sorry, we have around 120 women in the group chat. They're really
Wow,
Wow,
that's amazing, Pam.
dude,
Oh
let's
my
go.
gosh,
yeah,
that's
it's
incredible.
yes, for women in Bitcoin, it's a really big. Of course, sometimes our meetups are not like 100 people, but yes,
Yeah.
it's just to get to that point that more women understand Bitcoin. They can help to the community. They can sometimes talk about whatever is necessary in the group chat. So yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you kind of, gosh, it's so awesome that you're creating this space for women.
Mm.
And I love that you're creating content in Spanish because I feel
Yes.
like not only in, Latin America, but even here in America, we have obviously Mexico's close to our border and we have a lot of people who speak Spanish, and
Yeah.
so it's intimidating when you don't know the language and you don't know these big words that are happening. And then when you can relate to someone in their own language, it's like a whole barrier is dropped off. I
Yes.
really feel like it changes everything. Even here, when you speak to someone in Spanish and you know that they speak Spanish, it makes them feel at peace and like,
Yes.
oh, I feel comfortable now. So yeah, I definitely have seen that in person and it definitely helps a lot. And why do you think that there's still so many women that there's not as many women in Bitcoin in general, whether it's in Latin America or just in that adoption of women? Why do you feel that is?
Well, it's interesting because, for example, if you go to a conference, for example, right now it was one in Las Vegas, I guess.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You're gonna see women during the conference, maybe a lot of women, but the problem is that they're really just, for example, the girlfriend or the wife of somebody. It's not like really
Mm.
they're interested about it. And sometimes,
Yeah.
one time I get to one woman that she told me like, "Oh, I really don't have Bitcoin, but my husband has Bitcoin." It's like, yeah, I mean, this is not your Bitcoin. At the end, if you don't have your keys, it's not your Bitcoin, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, yes, they understand maybe what is Bitcoin, but they don't want to have the responsibility of what is Bitcoin. So
Mm,
I will say it's the reason there are not many women in Bitcoin is because sometimes it's a lot of misconceptions. There are a lot of, for example, content or things that are just related of catch the men eyes that no women really interested because at the end we have to speak with women and the way that she understand. But if,
yeah,
for
Mhm.
example, even Natalie Brunel, she's a big podcaster, but even in her audience, it's not the majority of her audience is not female. At the end, the
yeah,
majority of people are watching content in Bitcoin. The majority are men. So maybe
yeah,
this about what what we are trying to sell to the women. I mean, at the end, is if I want to talk to a woman about mining, maybe it's not something that is our interests. At the end,
yeah,
is maybe we have to get to more in the points to be more realistic to something that really catch her attention. And right now, maybe that's what I see like in the gap right now. There are
Yeah.
few
mhm,
women that are really into maybe in the middle, like, ah, yeah, my husband, my boyfriend has Bitcoin, but I really don't care because it's my internet money.
Yeah.
Some others like, this is too complicated. At the end, it's
yeah,
like
Yeah.
we make Bitcoin look so complicated, and that's another problem with men trying to orange pin women, and that's why
Yeah.
they're getting scared. It's like if you try to speak with a woman and say, "Oh yes, they're just 21 million. Look at the hash rate," it's like
what do you
not even
yeah,
my interest. Yes, in the end, we have to do more digestible with the content for women, or some. That's why I try to say that maybe with another women it's easier to connect because women are
right,
also more emotional. Women are the ones that taking decision with a base of their feelings. So if we
Mm.
get to Bitcoin, the point that say, okay, what are your savings? How is your bank account going? So, I mean, do you feel this growing? Because not many women are even save money because they're consuming. There are a lot
right,
of consuming in the modern society just for women. For
Mhm.
example, just you have to get to another point, maybe another perspective, not something to technology, because at the end it's like they don't want to feel that, for example, if you're a man, you don't have to get too superior with their topics when there's someone like new, they're trying to learn about it. And a specific women can feel scary. So yeah, at the end, it's like just more about how we really talk to them.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying this episode, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us reach more people and continue bringing you great guests. Now, let's get back to the show.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I was actually that woman that you're talking about who was like, what are you talking, like, he brought this to me, he was really navigating investing and all of that, right? It within the whole digital currency space.
Mm.
And we had just had like two kids in a row. So I was like, I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Mhm.
So he would talk to me, and I'm glad he included me. I'm because that
Yes.
also helps, right? When you're a partner and you just want to know what's going on. But yeah, I was definitely the person who was trying to figure out, what are you talking about? Like these
Mhm.
words that you're using are just like beyond my
Yeah.
capacity of understanding,
Yeah.
because some of these words that are used in
Yeah.
Bitcoin, you're like, I need a dictionary for this word. I need to be able to see what you're talking about, because there's so many acronyms and, things that aren't in our normal vocabulary.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I definitely understand why you kind of have seen that perspective, because I was that person. And then once things settled down in our lives, I was like, okay, I really want to understand what you're doing, because we're a
Yeah.
team. We're going to be doing this
Yeah.
together.
Mhm.
And we obviously, I know you're trying to grow our family and put us in a great position. So I need to understand this. And so
Yeah.
when we were having these conversations, that's kind of why we wanted to have, other conversations with other Bitcoiners, so that way
Yes.
I could learn even more.
Yeah.
So it's been really eye-opening to see different perspectives. And I love that you've created a space that feels safe for women, a space that allows women to feel like, oh, this isn't that hard, like this isn't really challenging. It's just a wiring of our brains a little bit about the system that we grew up in. So I love that you're doing that for sure.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
example, sorry, it's very
Go.
important what you say, that create a space that women can feel free to ask questions, because at the end, it's of course nobody wants to feel like ignorant, but that's what you make you humble. I mean, you have to ask the obvious questions sometimes, and that's important to make them feel comfortable to just get to the point that maybe I'm not gonna tell you, yes, you should buy Bitcoin tomorrow, but it's like just to get to the point. At the end, you have to learn in your own line. It's not like a process that I cannot force to the women to learn the way that I learn. But I
Hmm.
also believe that, for example, right now, just the finance literacy, it's very low in compared with men. And
Yeah.
it's also because, for example, a man when they're in the 20s, they're really this emotion to get to investing is excited. For
Mhm.
women, it's not that way. For women can get a little bit more stressed. And we are living already in a society that women are more stressed just for daily basis. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
just get an extra stress to them. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of things that are really, even if not in just in crypto, for example, crypto holders, that just 7% are women.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are talking about the finances. Not many women are into finance, and not in the
Yeah.
perspective that you have to be an economist, but you have to understand where is your money going, when you're spending, or how you're save money.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, because like you said, like we have to ask the basic questions, right? Like,
Mm.
what is money? Like that
Yeah.
is such a great question. Like, and people don't want to feel stupid and they don't want to be like,
Mhm.
oh, it's this, right? Like, because
Yeah.
that's how we grew up.
Yeah.
But like we all need to take a step back. It doesn't matter even if you're like a financial advisor or if you're like an economist or even a president, like you have to be like, what is money?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do not know what money is.
Hmm.
And that's like question number one. And then also when it comes to, when you mention that there's a bunch of like there's some girls that go to women that go to these Bitcoin conferences. Oh, I'm just a girlfriend, and he's like, I think that's like they need to step up, because what
Yeah.
if something happens to your husband or your if you're significant other and you guys been together for a while and this guy has Bitcoin, you guys been saving together, like no, you guys need to have like a little
Yeah.
plan B, like a backup if
Yeah.
something were to happen. So I
Yeah.
think that's very important. And then even when it goes to what you were chatting about with Natalie Brunell, I do think you're right. A lot of her audience is men, but I do think like she's doing a great job paving a way for women as well.
Yeah.
With her book that came out, Bitcoin is for everyone. And women were going to gravitate more to another women Bitcoiner
Yeah.
than they
Yeah.
would a man.
Mhm.
But no, all of these are great points. And going to your content that you put out on Twitter with Sisters of Satoshi in Spanish, I love it because this is where I wanted to have this interview you because I'll be scrolling and then you're like in Spanish, you're like with passion. You're just I'm like, she is yelling at me and I love it. Like she's like, I know she's saying some great Bitcoin
But
content,
I don't understand.
but I don't understand this. And I like, man, I love it. We need to get her on here and I need her to yell at me in English on what she's saying in Spanish. I
That's so
love
funny.
the
Yeah.
passion that you have, Pam. And I was
Thank
like,
you.
and I'm an energy person. Like I love like people who have great
Yeah.
energy. Like
Yeah.
she is so much great energy, but I don't know what she's saying right now.
Okay,
Um,
it's a good learning as well.
yeah, I need to learn it. I need to learn this. I need to figure it out.
Oh my gosh, so good. Well, you've talked about a little bit about like the digital nomad life and Bitcoin's future. How has Bitcoin enabled you to have that digital nomad lifestyle?
Well, that was interesting because when I left the first time in El Salvador, I went to Colombia. And really, I didn't have like, I was a start to get earning Bitcoin. So my bank account was really useless. It was a Salvadorian bank account. It was really useless. And I received payments in Bitcoin. And at the beginning, it was really difficult to, for example, convert that Bitcoin in fiat. But at the end works for me. And right now, just for being Salvadorians, there are really different tools already available just for Salvadorians. We have, for example, these Bitcoin cards that they're like debit cards that at the end is like another wallet. You can
Mhm.
just exchange, put your money there and convert your Bitcoin, and then you can spend it like a normal Visa, MasterCard. So yeah, that's how I start to travel because I have the possibility to receive money on Bitcoin. And when I was trying, for example, it was not my first time to try to be a freelancer. But for example, PayPal doesn't work in El Salvador. It's really useless to use PayPal. I don't know if it's still available for in El Salvador because first it's a lot of fees
Mm.
to just withdraw put that money in somehow in an account that you can withdraw or you can use in a card. It's really difficult, and at the end, it's a lot of fees that you have to pay. A method to get paid for whatever country that I am. It's just Bitcoin. It's just possible with Bitcoin. Right now, many of the people are at work right now. They pay me in Bitcoin and it's too easy to me to receive it. For Salvadorian, if I want to get paid for someone in America using my Salvadorian bank account, it's a very
Yeah.
difficult process. Even the Salvadorian technology in the bank, it's just too complicated. So
Mhm.
they're
Yeah.
really difficult to make to be, for example, digital nomad with your normal account. So yeah, Bitcoin gave me to be that interesting tool that gave me the power to use Bitcoin. At the same time, I've had to well sell it somehow because yes, I had to live some way, right?
Yeah.
So at the end, it's like yes, it's just that that's how I get to digital nomad because it was possible to me to travel at the same time I can withdraw the money and convert it in fiat. That in
Mm.
Salvadorian, just to be a Salvadorian is kind of difficult. Of course, in
Yeah.
Yeah.
the US, you have hundreds of ways to just receive money some way, but to somebody in Latin America, it's right now there are a few other tools that I start to get. But
Okay.
just 5 years, 3 years ago, it was really difficult. 5 years ago, I started to use PayPal, and it was really a mess. It was impossible
Yeah.
to withdraw it in El Salvador, so I only can spend, and I only can spend in online websites. So it was like my idea was to save money, but if I can have
Yeah.
to spend it, it's like difficult. So yeah, in the end, it's how Bitcoin gets to really important in my life.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's great. And just to add on to that, so I know you shared it's still difficult for people in Latin America, in El Salvador, to receive Bitcoin, and El Salvador is really like Bitcoin, what we hear, Bitcoin country, legal
Yeah.
tender, like it's the future. So how does El Salvador make things a little bit easier for them to start accepting it a little bit more if it's still difficult?
Mm.
What would you
Well,
say would yeah, help adopt that and make things a little bit more streamlined?
for example, that's right now that El Salvador is more like Bitcoin friendly. There are a lot of companies that just Bitcoin companies that get to Salvador to make their businesses. They receive a few benefits, like for bit technology, they don't have to pay. They have like zero. They don't have to pay like zero taxes. And the few, and I don't remember if the first year, but yeah, they give those solution for different other companies to get to El Salvador, and then if there are Bitcoin companies, they're pretty much they can make a product and make able to El Salvador. For example, this card that I start using right now is a few other cards in El Salvador that you can accept Bitcoin. And of course, I understand El Salvadorians daily basis. You have to for example, you have to sell sometimes. It's a really easy way to do it. You don't have to go to the bank to do those things.
Yeah.
It's just available in your phone. Other thing that it's really important to get to more Salvadorans is, for example, we are a country that I think that 40% of our the money coming in is from the remittances from the US. So we have
Mm.
a million Salvadorians living in the US that they send money for example, Western Union to El Salvador. But it's so expensive at the end. You don't
Yep.
receive the money that you have to pay. Do you really pay for that? And sometimes
Yes.
you pay to send it and you pay to withdraw it. So it's not it's not really an advantage anymore.
Mhm.
I understand like with this Trump at the beginning of the year, something about the tariff. I understand that it was affecting the remittances fees, but at the end, it's like if you can use Bitcoin and you already have Bitcoin ATMs to withdraw that money, it's just easier and simple to use it. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
like how you can connect with the Salvadorians is just tools or things that they can really do in the daily basis. And what they can do in daily basis is like save money and also spend money because at the end, it's
Right.
like, yes, we are a population that really, for example, our minimum salary is like $400. So yeah,
Wow.
Okay.
if you can save $5 or you can spend $5 a day was from Bitcoin, it's just a way. Also, we have a different communities, Bitcoin circular economies, that you don't have to withdraw in US dollars. You can just spend them in something that maybe you need. At the end is to me what I see money right now in a different perspective of value for value. So to me, if Bitcoin is too valuable, now I really care about what I'm spending or how the money is going. And that's also really good for me when I start to be digital nomad because I start to understand that as a woman, I don't need like 100 dresses. I mean, I only
Yeah.
have one. And at the end, if I travel around, 100 dresses to me is useless. It's too much weight in my
Very.
luggage. So it's
Yeah.
like get to that way to get less materialistic. And more women are more materialistic. For example, I know women that have like 40 pairs of shoes. I don't know if I can have 40 pairs of shoes, but even right now that I can stay in a place for more than, I don't know, for 6 months or a year, I not really get to the point to spend that money in things that are really not valuable for me because in the end I have to sell Bitcoin for those things are really important or I
Yeah.
really prefer to save that money.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's really good. No, that's really good. Sounds like you understand what money is.
Yeah.
Going back to with El Salvador, right? So
Mhm.
I still think, and I would love to hear your perspective. I still think the fact that you guys made it legal tender, it's still, it sounds like in the adoption phase, like there's still a lot of hurdles to overcome in El Salvador. I still think you guys are still leading and paving the way. The fact that you guys even talk about it and people even just they connect
Yeah.
El Salvador and Bitcoin together. How far ahead do you think? Well, okay, well, like people will start coming around to this, and maybe it'll be a lot more fluid and things will be a lot more streamlined when it comes to El Salvador and Bitcoin. Or do you still think that's kind of ways away?
Well, I will say that the adoption is growing in El Salvador in compare like just 4 years ago that it was really not adopted for many Salvadorians. But I really expect that how the things are going because even El Salvador is still in the eyes of many. At the
Hmm.
same way, I think that many Salvadorans can understand what is the advantage about it. I mean, you can do really advantages in your country that maybe 10 years ago, you many Salvadorans decide to leave El Salvador because it was impossible to leave. It was impossible to have an opportunity to grow in your own in your homeland country. But
Hmm.
I will say that in 10 years, I'll just expect that more Salvadorans understand what is Bitcoin, not just in the perspective that for tourists it's also in the perspective of what if you're saving if we know that their money is really devaluated because that's some another thing maybe because we are with the US dollar we don't see the devaluation of money and the same that other countries like they have pesos or other pesos or guaranis or quetzales that are different other currencies that really they have really bad against inflation. But I think that the Salvadorians can have a real opportunity to make this for longer, for a few more years, or at least whatever people want, because the society right now is increasing in the way that Salvador is not just in Bitcoin, it's also in technology, it's also in AI. Right now, we have
Hmm.
many other
Hmm.
for the government, they're trying to push more about what is money to understand for kids in the school.
Yes.
When I was in the school, I didn't receive that kind of classes, and I would
Yeah.
like it. So at the end, it's like there are many others, not just for the government. That's also another organization that get the eyes into El Salvador. They try to make them just a different country. I mean, I don't say that we are gonna be maybe like a first world country, but maybe we are in the path to get better in compare with others Latin American countries. That's right now we are doing in compare with Central America. And 10 years ago, people really preferred to go to Costa Rica because it was safe. But it's the
Yeah.
same. as El Salvador is really similar. Right now, as El Salvador, I don't need to go to Costa Rica to find opportunities when El Salvador right now is safe. It's easier to access. There are a lot of information about it. There are a lot of people trying to get to Salvador do do things for Salvadorians to increase the economy. At the end, it's like yes, if you want to see a open window, you can have one. I don't know if
Hmm.
that
So,
answered your question. Sorry.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that was really good.
Yeah, that's great. And it's great to see the optimism, right? I feel like that's what Bitcoin creates. It does create optimism more than that, and it's intimidating, but there's a lot more hope in Bitcoin, right? There's a lot more opportunity and there's a lot more safety. And I loved kind of hearing how you travel and you can easily use that money. And I think that's sometimes really helpful for people to hear because yeah, it's really hard to like, change your, exchange your money and all of that when you're traveling. But when you have Bitcoin, it's keeping its value and you can then use it wherever you are, right? And it's, it's just really cool to see it being utilized and it's exciting. I'm curious now, what kind of excites you? You kind of, mentioned about over the next 10 years in El Salvador, but in general, what excites you about Bitcoin over the next, decade?
In your life.
Well, I think what excites me about Bitcoin in the next decade, in my perspective, and well, nobody gave me the mission or they give me the job, but I really trying to get more women in Bitcoin because I really believe that if we get more women in Bitcoin can increase the adoption drastically. Why?
Yeah.
Because at the end, women are the ones that are really empathic. Women are the ones that create communities. Women are the ones that keep the houses together, keep the house together.
Yeah.
So really, women can connect in a different perspective that men really maybe cannot. Or it's just different characteristic as the characteristic that we have as men and women. But yeah, I feel that if we can increase the adoption with women, it just can increase the adoption with everyone else because women are the reason why they're best sellers because they
Yeah.
can sell better than men. At the end,
Yeah.
women can do that job. So I think that maybe that's why right now our adoption is a little bit lower. can be that reason, but I feel that if we can increase the amount of women in the space, can help a lot to increase Bitcoin communities, do circular economies, do a small thing in your own town. You don't have to be in El Salvador to start to create your
Yeah.
uh, Bitcoin meetup or whatever. It's just amount of perspective of how women can really empathize with others, not just with women, but yes, women are the end, they're the one that really warm to others. So yeah, I will say that in 10 years, if we can get to more women, I believe that in 10 years we can have a better adoption worldwide.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that. That was
Yeah.
really good, Pam. I really like that.
Yeah.
To wrap things up here, I always like to end with this question. Any advice that you would give to somebody who's first entering and getting their feet wet into the Bitcoin space? Um, what do you have for them?
Well, I think that if you stay humble, you can find answers wherever you go. Because at the end, you have to understand that you have to unlearn some things that you believe
Yes.
in your life. So at the end, it's just a process to unlearn what you already knew and
Yes.
understand that sometimes that can be a little bit scary to be humble
Mhm.
to understand you don't know sometimes you don't know everything. So yeah, in the
Yeah.
end, I will say that just to stay curious and understand that sometimes you have to unlearn what you believe.
Yeah, that's really good because everything is a lie once you understand Bitcoin. So you have to unlearn everything that you know. That's great,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pam.
that was
like for example, I start with Bitcoin and then I get to exercise, then I get to health, then I get to
Yeah.
cooking. And it's just a
Hmm.
process to just to understand if your government is lying to you in one thing, why it's not lying in everything, right? It's like just to
yeah.
Yeah.
start to get to the point to your do your own you do your own conclusions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Think for yourself.
Yeah, critically think for
You
yourself
know?
and unlearn and be willing to know that it's okay that things that we were taught in the past
Yeah.
maybe aren't what we thought it was. And that was
Hmm.
eye-opening for me too when I was navigating this as well. And just having conversations with people like you and just going, wow, I continuously am like always like, holy cow, like we were totally lied to,
Yeah.
for so long. And yeah, and I love that it kind of reaches to different parts of your life too, not just currency, but it goes into your health and your just all aspects of your life, your relationships, all of that. It's just super important. So,
Yeah.
gosh, yeah.
1 second. You just reminded me too, fam. Like unlearn and think right for yourself. So one of my friends, Andrew, he has this. He just said this to me the other day. It was so good. He recently immigrated into America, and he was like, "Why does everybody in America they use their hands to work? God gave them hands to work, and God gave us a brain, and no one uses it here in America." He's like, "No one uses this." And I'm like, I know, I don't get it. I don't get it, Andrew. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's interesting to see another different perspective, right? When you're living your own time for I don't know for how long, but even in El Salvador, when I got to different countries, it's just an unlearning process how the people are in the different cultures. It's like yes, I have to understand, I have to adapt, and it's part of the process. Adapt is really important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Pam, for joining us today. I love your perspective, and I feel like you have such a great presence
yeah.
on the X community. Where can people connect with you?
Well, you can find me on X and well on my other platforms like Pamela with double E, Pamela Posada, or you can find Sister of Satoshi. We are in every single social media. Sister of Satoshi is a women community, but at the end is open to learn for everyone that speaks Spanish. So if you want to learn a little bit Spanish, it's also great to see you there. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And also on Nostr, I'm also like Pamela Posada. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm really happy to meet you guys. I really appreciate the time that you spent with me today as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone else, for tuning in to the Moon with the Lunas. And we'll see you all on the moon.
Bye.
Bye.